Have you ever listened to a song that's just so good that you needed to talk about it? Well, I just listened to Yoru Ni Kakeru, and I need to talk about it. Yoru Ni Kakeru, or Racing into the Night as I'm going to call it, just to avoid offending any Japanese listeners, is a very, very lovely, beautiful, catchy song. Yes, it is definitely about jumping off the roof of a building, but we'll get into that later. I've been listening to this song for a while now, like a few months, and it's just been in my playlist, the one that I just, turn on and sort of tune out, because it's in Japanese and I don't speak Japanese very well, so it's always been one of those songs where I just listen to it because it's got a catchy beat and the vocals are nice. It wasn't actually until fairly recently that I took the time out of my day to watch the music video and actually look at the lyrics. Yeah, the lyrics are definitely the highlight of it. I've been missing out quite a bit, or depending on if you believe ignorance is bliss or not, I've sort of doomed myself. So we'll talk about the definitive meaning behind the lyrics in just a bit. But yeah, I was quite moved by the lyrics, to say the least. It left quite an impression on me. And even though, as it's been pointed out to me by someone, I am fairly late to this song. This song came out a pretty decent while ago. It was the #1 song in 2020, and I'm pretty sure it still is now. Believe it or not many people have listened to the song in the US, which is really a shame because it is deserving of everything, every praise it's received and more. Actually, in my Discord server, by the way, join the Discord server, VTuber Hell. It's in the description. Anyways, let's not plug myself too much. I had asked the people if for them to listen to the song, listen to the lyrics, and give me their first impressions. What do you think the song means? And I've got some varied answers. Some of them was just about, oh, it's a couple in love and how they overcame depression. I guess in some way they did. But not a whole lot of people sort of got the general theme of the song, because it is a little subversive. And especially because of the tone of the song, it's so bright and jovial. That probably wouldn't be their first impression that it's about, some not so bright things, despite what the beat would say. Yeah, so I listened to the song, and I gotta give myself a little credit. I almost immediately kind of got the meaning. First time I actually looked at the lyrics, I was like, oh, right, yeah, so this song is about a double suicide. And, well, I wasn't entirely 100% correct there, but, well, let's talk about the lyrics. If you actually look into it, Yoru Ni Kakeru, Racing Tonight, is a song centered around the story of the Temptation of Thanatos. And I'm not gonna read the entirety of Temptation of Thanatos. It is a very good read, though. It's not very long. It's about like 2 pages or something. It's a very short story. And it is about a dude whose girlfriend has been suicidal in the past, and well, let's just go through the synopsis basically. So I'll include the link for this for the story in the description, but I'm just going to give a general sort of read along, kind of, not like word for word, but this is basically the events of the song and how it goes. So the story starts off with a man receiving a singular text message from his girlfriend, which says goodbye. This is not the first time where he has received such a message, as in the past, the girlfriend has been waiting on a roof to commit suicide, but every time the guy has talked her down. It also goes into the idea that some humans are inclined towards life, governed by, it's either Eros or Eros, I'm not 100% sure, and the other group of people who are inclined towards death, governed by Thanatos, and how his girlfriend was unmistakably a member of the latter, being governed by Thanatos, being drawn towards death, basically. It also talks about how they first met when he found her on the rooftop and convinced her to not jump off the roof. Just like what is happening right now. And, they've been dating for a little bit, they get along very well, and they distract each other from their miserable existences, basically. And he goes into how he works for a black company, and a black company is basically a company that does not so ethical things and is just sort of morally kind of dark. Think Amazon, or really any major corporation in America, I guess. You know, it's actually not so hard to relate to. Anyways, every single time when she would go to the roof and plan to jump, she contacted him, and again, every time, you know, he sort of said to not do that. And this time, you know, it goes up to the roof again, and she says how she wants to die, and he says, you know, he shouldn't do that initially. And she goes into the god of death and how, you know, she's being called by the god of death. And he is sort of jealous, kind of, in a way, where she's so obsessed with the god of death, it sort of draws her away from the main character. And I want to just read off this little section because I think it's just very moving, and it is almost a direct quote from the actual song itself. So anyways, let me just read this. I'm sick of this, she says. I'm sick of this too, he says. I'm tired, she says. I'm tired too, he says. I want to die quickly, she says. I want to die too, he says. At that point, she lifted her head. She was grinning broadly at me. As soon as I saw her smiling face, I felt the darkness in my heart dissipate in an instant. Wait, could it be that? Did you finally realize? Yes, I finally understood, he says. Really? That's great, she says. I see. The reason you called me each time you planned to commit suicide was not because you wanted my help, it was because you wanted to bring me along with you. To me, she was the god of death. And hell, we're so close to the end, I might as well finish it. A cool breeze blew past me. Before I knew it, I could no longer feel the heat and humidity from before. Well then, shall we go? Yeah, let's go. You and me, with our hands connected so that we could escape from the frustration the world brings us, we leapt out into the night sky. So yeah, they throw themselves off the roof of that fucking building. It is a very macabre sort of story, and it is a very compelling one, as short as it is, and there are many, like, almost direct quotes in the actual lyrics of Racing Into the Night, where they almost quote the story word for word. So let's go into the lyrics of Racing Into the Night now. It's like we're sinking, it's like we're melting on that night where the sky stretched endlessly just for the two of us. Establishing the setting, it was only a simple goodbye, but it was all I needed to understand. The sinking sun and your figure were overlapping beyond the fence. So the fence is also described in the Temptation of Thanatos. It was only a simple goodbye, referring to the text message. And yeah, this isn't sort of just like vaguely referencing the story. The lyric writer directly says that, yes, this is based off of the Temptation of Thanatos. This isn't, you know, they're not really like making a reference so much as they are, well, I guess they are making a reference. The song is a reference to it in that the song basically is that. But anyways, ever since first day we met, you stole all of my heart, wrapped in some sort of fragile air, you had a lonely gaze. So, you know, again, just saying what the story basically said. Again and again in the world, always ringing with TikToks, even if the tears seemed about to spill. Over-touching, thoughtless words and irritating voices. As long as we're together, I'm sure we can find an ordinary happiness. Sort of vaguely establishing how their circumstances were not the best, but you know they were able to get through it because they were together and through their mutual help. In the troubling days, for the never smiling you, I give my utmost wishes for a dazzling tomorrow. Before we fall in the never-ending night, come and take my hand. Even the days where you shut yourself away, wanting to forget, I'll melt with the warmth of my embrace. So don't be afraid until the sun rises again. Someday, let's be together. So again, sort of alluding to how, you know, like the sort of one light in the darkness was their relationship, even as the world around them was so bleak. I hate it when you stare at the things only you can see, like you're captivated by it or you're in love. I hate that expression. So this is referring to how she can, you know, quote unquote, see the god of death, how she can see Thanatos. You know, things that aren't there, you know, you get it. The things I want to believe, but I can't. No matter what I do, they'll pop up again and again from now on, and every time I'll get angry and cry. Even so, someday we'll understand each other. I believe that. And I think this is sort of another allusion to how, you know, she's saying what she says on the rooftop, how she wants to die and all that. And he's sort of still hopeful for a future where they can find peace and happiness and all that. Not gonna happen. And from here on is the part where I sort of read aloud in the actual story, and I'll just read it in the form of these lyrics here. So, I don't want this, I'm tired of it. I frantically reach for your hand, but you push my hands away. I don't want this, I'm tired of it. To tell the truth, I want to say that too. In the world ringing with TikToks again and again. I mean, this guy hates TikTok, understandable. None of the words I prepared for you reach you. I want to end it all. When I went along and said that you smiled for the first time. So this song is basically directly saying that, you know, when he agrees with her, or when he says that he too wants it all to end, and he wants to die, she smiled for the first time. So this is basically directly saying that. In the troubling days, I became unable to smile. You are truly beautiful in my eyes. The spilled over tears and the never-ending night all dissolve into your smile. In the never-changing days when I cried, you gently tempt me towards the end. It's like we're sinking, it's like we're melting. The indelibly, that's a word, stain fog dissipates. On the days where I shut myself away, wanting to forget, I take your hand as you extend it towards me. It's like the cool breeze is now swimming through the sky, blowing through us. Don't let go of my hand. The two of us now racing into the night. I just get chills every time I read that. It's such a good lyric. So yeah, that would seem to be the story. I'll give you a little hint. There's a little bit more nuance to it. But if you closely analyze the lyrics, indeed, it is about a couple who does a double suicide and throws himself off the roof of a building. Two of us racing into the night. That is just. I shouldn't make jokes about that. That's actually kind of dark. I mean, this is a dark song, but I shouldn't make light of it, I guess. I want to read off a little interview that the actual songwriter did, and how just sort of an insight into how the story of the temptation of Thanatos was actually adapted into the song, which the song is most certainly now much more notable and popular than the original story, which is kind of interesting. But anyways, let's get into it. So, can you elaborate on your process of writing music based on stories? So he says, I guess it goes without saying that I start off by thoroughly studying the story, except I primarily compose the music first and add the lyrics later, so usually set aside the finer parts of the storyline for the time being, and determine the overall style first, like the tempo and sound. And it's pretty much an intuitive process for me, kind of like playing the music in my head while I'm reading the original story. I think the result is faithful to the work it's based on. Thanatos no Yuwaku, Seduction of Thanatos. And I'm so sorry that I said that out loud. I'm only taking Japanese 102. I'm not very good at this. Anyways, it's a story that reflects the way the author views life and death. But the song that was inspired by it, Yoru Ni Kakeru, Racing to the Night, has a kind of drive to it with powerfully energetic vocals which veers away from the serious tone of the song itself. I figured if I were to write a gloomy tune to express Thanatos no Yuwaku, it would just become unbearably bleak. So I made it catchy and pop on purpose. I wanted to express the grotesque that resides within beauty and cuteness. So that's it's a pretty good way of putting it, I'd say. I'm not sure, some of you guys may have seen the TikTok where it's like me like vibing to Japanese music, not knowing what it's about or something along those lines. I'm just gonna say that I was listening to it before that TikTok. I'm really cool before it was cool and all that. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But anyway, so that is the author directly saying where the message of the song comes from, and how he sort of made the upbeat melody and just very sort of bright and happy song on purpose, because to sort of not really not so much trick the listeners, but to keep them not entirely turned off, basically, by the dark messages. As for the sort of second, deeper layer, it's pretty much certain that the girl doesn't actually exist. Now, the song and the story both sort of talk about how the girl is obsessed with death, governed by Thanatos and all that stuff. But in actuality, it seems based off of general consensus, and I'm not sure if the author of Thanatos no I'm not gonna try to pronounce that again. Not sure if he explicitly stated it, but general consensus surrounding the story is that the girl is actually the god of death. She is Thanatos, and the actual person governed by Thanatos is the guy. So, does the girl exist? Yes and no. No in the sense that she's not like really a person, but yes in the sense that she's death, or Thanatos, and that he's in love with death itself. So she's manifested as death, but in the form of a girl. And basically, he was always sort of had these thoughts of suicide, and it's always been in his mind, but he never really had that extra thing that would, push him to actually go through with it until, Thanatos sort of manifested itself in the form of this girl, or so most people sort of generally agree as far as the story. So as far as that goes, that is the meaning behind Racing into the Night, Yoru Ni Kakeru, and that's where you'll probably if you go into the comments of Yoru Ni Kakeru, there'll be a comment or two saying like, man, this song was so catchy, and you know, it was such a happy song for me until I actually read the lyrics. And you know, most people don't actually listen to the lyrics for, you know, Japanese music. They just sort of, you know, listen along and, you know, it sounds nice, and you know, that's enough. But I think you'd be missing out a lot if you don't actually pay attention to a lot of these songs, because the meanings are often just as beautiful as the actual, you know, how it sounds. Some of them are more dark, definitely, but I think you're missing a lot of value if you don't pay attention to the lyrics or the translation, and you can't get 100%. You know, it probably loses a decent amount of its meaning when translated. It's probably more deep in Japanese than just in the English translation, so you probably lose a little bit of it there, but still. The second aspect of this whole song that I kind of want to talk about, go into a little detail about, is the sort of motif that a lot of Japanese J-pop songs have, where a lot of times they'll sort of have this really upbeat tempo and like this really bright sounding instrumentals and all that stuff, when the reality of the song's a lot darker. Now I think, and I'm not sure if this, you know, I'm no expert on, you know, Japanese music, but I think my interpretation of this is that it's sort of a reflection on Japanese society and culture. And again, I've never lived in Japan, I've never actually been to Japan, though I'd like to one day. Anyways, let me just go into my whole like theory, kind of, or you know, my belief. I think that it sort of mirrors Japanese society, where, you know, on the surface level, right, as is the instrumentals, you know, it's very bright and it's very energetic and it's very sort of cutesy in a lot of regards. You know, you'd see all these like pictures of Japan and like descriptions of it, and how, you know, it's such this like very, you know, bright place where everyone would want to be, because, you know, it's like, it's so awesome with all this cultural, you know, icons, things like that. When in reality, for, you know, the average Japanese salary person or wage worker, things like that, for the people who actually live there, for a very large amount of them, you know, it's just this, it's not a good place to be at all. You know, it's terrible. It's, you know, the conditions there, you know, the sort of feeling of despair for the majority of the people who live their life as, you know, working for a company, all this stuff. I mean, a lot of people think it's like really bad here in America, and it definitely is. But compared to Japan, it's you know, it's not nearly as bad. That's why like the suicide rate there is so high. That's why, you know, the birth rate's so low, because nobody has really like any hope for the future. And I think it sort of mirrors that, how like the lyrics, if you look into it, if you look deeper and you actually pay attention to this sort of stuff, you know, it's not what, you know, like the same sort of message that you'd get from the instrumentals. It's not this very upbeat, you know, all happy sort of place, and how like the instrumentals will sort of deceive you into thinking that. But, you know, the deeper truth is that, you know, it's for a huge amount of people, it's a very incredibly dark place. And in Yoru Ni Kakeru and a lot of J-pop songs, the lyrics are actually much darker. And that's sort of my whole, God, I don't want to say headcanon, but that's sort of a connection. You know, I'm not saying that like they're crafting these songs as commentary on Japanese society or anything like that. But, you know, that's just sort of my interpretation of it. I sort of just went on a very long sort of rant, I guess. Not really rant, but sort of love letter to Yoru Ni Kakeru. I think it's just such a beautiful song, and, you know, I just want to talk about it. And I was just really moved by the lyrics, and, you know, I want to take a break from just posting nonstop VTuber-related content. I like to think that I'm, you know, not so devoid of talent that I can only do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little different video, and you know, I'd love to do more. And I'd love to do a video on some Yorushika songs as well. Those are have very similar sort of themes around darker meanings behind, you know, very, very, you know, upbeat and happy sounding instrumentals. So if you want to do that, let me know in the comments, and you know, subscribe if you enjoyed this, and maybe check out the VTuber Hell Discord. And this is a Discord that myself and my community runs, and it's just a nice place to, you know, post some memes and sort of vibe and chill and have a good time. So maybe check out Discord as well. It's in the description. Alright, I don't know how to end this video, but thanks for watching, and peace.